Welcome back to this explainer. If you were with us for part 1, you know we laid out the bedrock of maritime security in this new India-Australia relationship. Well, today we're continuing that journey. We're going to see how these 18 agreements are, way more than just diplomatic handshakes. They are literally the architectural blueprints for the Indo-Pacific's future. Let's get right into it.
Here is our roadmap for today. We'll start with a quick recap, then dive into energy security, building tomorrow's tech ecosystem, human capital, geopolitics and the economy, and finally wrap up with the big future outlook for 2045.
All right, Section 1. Recap. The strategy continues.
Let's trace how this partnership actually builds over time. As we established in Part 1, securing the maritime domain, that was the mandatory first step. The initial Defense Pact back in 2009 really laid the groundwork for those comprehensive security frameworks we saw in 2023. But here's the thing. Security isn't the end goal, right? It is the prerequisite. That secure environment has now paved the way for the 2026 implementation era, which sparks the massive engines of economic growth that will ultimately drive a long-term geopolitical shift by 2045. Because history is rarely shaped by a single agreement signed on a random Tuesday. It's shaped by decades of strategic, unglamorous implementation.
Moving to Section 2, powering the future, energy security.
This domino effect we're seeing perfectly illustrates the strategic synergy at play here. Australian uranium, strictly mined under international safeguards, of course, directly supplies India's growing fleet of civilian nuclear reactors. In the geopolitical arena, having stable, weather-independent baseload electricity is the absolute lifeblood of heavy industry. This continuous power directly translates into massive manufacturing scale, export capacity, and continuous compounding GDP growth. For the everyday citizen, this means a future free from rolling blackouts, where energy prices actually stabilize and industrial job creation remains consistent, totally regardless of global energy market fluctuations. It's huge.
But, future dominance isn't just about electricity anymore, it's about the materials of tomorrow. Critical minerals, things like lithium, cobalt, and rare earth elements, these are essentially the new oil. Australia sits on some of the largest unrefined deposits on Earth, while India needs massive quantities to scale up its electric vehicle manufacturing base and, crucially, to power next-generation defense systems. Securing this pipeline means both of these nations insulate themselves against the nasty supply chain bottlenecks that have literally paralyzed other global powers in recent years.
And listen, this is definitely not your traditional buyer-seller dynamic. When you combine legacy energy inputs like LNG and metallurgical coal partnerships with something as ambitious as a rooftop solar training academy, you get a highly integrated ecosystem. They are merging Australian resources and advanced mining tech with India's massive demographic dividend. Even more importantly, this framework specifically prioritizes the skilling of youth and women for a clean energy transition. It's a comprehensive blueprint designed to ensure that as the world decarbonizes, neither economy gets left behind in the industrial transition.
Next up, Section 3, building tomorrow's tech ecosystem.
Notice the perfect strategic symmetry here. On one side, Australia brings abundant raw materials and cutting-edge academic research. On the other side, India offers unparalleled manufacturing scale, a vast digital infrastructure, and a young demographic totally ready for mass technology adoption. It's a textbook example of complementary assets aligning to form a closed-loop innovation ecosystem. Instead of fiercely competing for dominance in the exact same sectors, these two nations realize that combining their asymmetrical strengths creates a much more resilient technological bloc.
Let's look at the operational initiatives making this happen. Through pacts, they're securing incredibly fragile supply chains in artificial intelligence, cyber defense, and semiconductors. Then there's the ACIT initiative, which creates a really unique tri-nation bridge. It brings startups from Australia, India, and Canada together for global scaling, ensuring Western and Indo-Pacific tech ecosystems stay deeply intertwined. And honestly, perhaps the most fascinating part is Gaganyaan, India's human spaceflight mission. Because of orbital mechanics and Australia's unique southern hemisphere geography, its ground stations are absolutely essential to track Indian spacecraft and maintain uninterrupted communications. The next era of geopolitical competition, it's being won right here in shared technological capability.
But as analysts, we do have to provide a quick reality check. A signed agreement does not automatically mean immediate jobs or capabilities. Translating a high-level semiconductor memorandums and joint space operations into operational, profitable industries, that will require a decade of sustained, highly bureaucratic effort. We really have to separate the diplomatic headlines from the gritty reality of implementation. Navigating differing regulatory frameworks, private sector hesitancy, and massive capital requirements will seriously test the endurance of both governments.
All right, Section 4, Human Capital and Soft Power.
Ultimately, complex technology requires highly specialized human capital, and this is where diplomacy becomes tangible for everyday citizens. By opening campuses for Flinders and Victoria universities directly in India and establishing mutual recognition of vocational skills, they are building a shared workforce. Plus, joint medical research between the University of Melbourne and India's CSIR, combined with the return of crucial historical artifacts and the protection of heritage via the Traditional Knowledge Digital Library, all of this builds something incredibly rare in geopolitics: genuine people-to-people trust. Because when a professional from Mumbai can work seamlessly in Melbourne because their credentials align perfectly, you move way past bureaucratic handshakes into lasting societal integration.
Which brings us to Section 5, Geopolitics and Economic Impact.
If you're viewing this through the lens of a macro investor or a policy strategist, these are the pillars you absolutely need to watch: civil nuclear energy, critical mining tech, AI infrastructure, defense manufacturing, and biotechnology. By signing these 18 agreements, both governments are essentially putting a rock-solid floor under these specific sectors. They're signaling decades of state-backed support, effectively de-risking these industries for private capital. These aren't just sectors poised for growth. They are the fundamental utilities required to sustain a modern, secure state in the 21st century.
So why this sudden urgency to integrate these economies? Well, we're witnessing a massive global shift right now. The pandemic and recent geopolitical conflicts laid bare a really harsh reality. Relying on a single dominant nation for critical resources or manufacturing is a massive national security vulnerability. This partnership is a masterclass in diversification. It proves that economic survival in the Indo-Pacific now demands redundant, trusted supply chains that can absorb global shocks. Resilience is quite literally the new currency of global power.
Finally, Section 6, the 2045 Future Outlook.
As we look toward 2035 and beyond, we have to ask a critical question. Which of these 18 agreements will yield the highest return on investment? Will it be the uranium powering entire megacities, the tri-nation tech startups scaling globally, or maybe the joint space missions monitoring the cosmos from Earth's orbit? This is the analytical exercise you must undertake. The strategic seeds being planted today across energy, technology, and academia will absolutely dictate the balance of power tomorrow.
Distilling these 18 agreements leaves us with 5 unshakable pillars for the future: energy security, tech leadership, human capital, strategic trust, and shared prosperity. Together, they form a whole new paradigm. In the 21st century, true national strength is no longer just about military tonnage. It's built through shared knowledge, resilient partnerships, and the absolute agility to adapt to a rapidly changing world.
So as these two nations draw the blueprint for the next 20 years, ask yourself this: if the economic center of gravity has truly shifted to the Indo-Pacific, are your own strategies, investments, and skills aligned with this new reality? Because ultimately, understanding the world isn't about memorizing headlines, it's about connecting the dots.